the GFR Commandments are the roadmap for getting real. And this isn't light, airy, fairy shit. This is like, okay, if you're up for it and you believe that your work is part of your personal evolution and that like doing your work depends on you getting real and getting out of your own way, I feel like, that's what this conversation can be about. That's what my show, the Get Fucking Real show, is about. It's really acknowledging that there is struggle and we are at war with ourselves sometimes, and we aren't telling the truth sometimes to ourselves. And all of that, when confronted, that's when we can, quote unquote, get real and be ourselves.
This is an intro. Intro.
Hustle and flow chart with your boy, my boy, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier.
Hey.
What up, homie?
Hey, my man. How are you?
I'm feeling great. This was actually a really, really good episode, and I'm feeling pretty pumped for people to hear this one.
It's weird, but I just noticed, I think I had like a smile on my face almost the entire time.
Well, that's just because we recorded it on video.
Yeah, that helps, actually. You're right. No, that's actually...
When we do record video, we tend to be more upbeat and smile more because we know the person on the other side is going to feed off of our energy a little bit. Where if we're just audio, there's less there's less visual cue for them to feed off of.
Do you think it got us to be more fucking real?
Probably.
I think so.
This was one of the realer episodes.
I would say so, and
it felt like a therapy session episode.
Oh, totally, totally. But like, and what's even cooler is that she listened to our most recent therapy session, the one about affiliate marketing. I don't know if it goes in line with how this is dropping. I don't want to confuse people, but yeah, it did feel like a therapy session. But I think there's a ton that that
one's already live, so you don't have to worry about that one coming after this.
Right, that's true. Okay, perfect, good. So yeah, Lisa is on the show. Lisa Cherney, she is absolutely amazing.
What's her brand name?
Get Fucking Real, GFR. So she is. She calls herself the Queen of Clarity, and it's true because and you'll hear us reference a lot in this podcast her 12 GFR Commandments, and it's a free PDF that you can actually get it. I'll just say it right now. It's gfr.life/12C. So that's 12C as in cat.
Yeah, I actually recommend if you're listening to this like at home, like at a computer or something, go opt in for that and have that in front of you while you're listening to this episode, because she references the commandments quite a bit throughout this episode.
Good call.
And that doc is those commandments that she's referencing, and it's totally free. It's a free opt-in.
Totally worth it. It's you'll hear how we both I talk a lot about like the journaling I've been doing a lot more lately. And this is perfect for prompting you for getting your wheels spinning in this direction that you might not have been thinking about, like a blockage in how you're showing up in life or business, to your spouse, to your friends, to your business partner. It doesn't matter. These commandments, the 12, you could freaking print this off and put it on your wall, or keep it next to your journal, whatever it looks like. But in terms of clarity, like the Queen of Clarity, hell yeah.
I actually think I have a glossy version of this. Didn't she hand out glossy versions of this at the Media Summit?
Yeah,
I think she did.
I don't know. Possibly. But either way, yeah, go get those and you'll hear, because this episode almost felt like you said, it felt like a therapy session episode, but also kind of like a therapy session.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to hear me break down a bunch of my like insecurities and stuff that I sort of shit my pants about. Things like speaking on stage and going on bigger podcasts, even though a lot of times the people that are listening to this podcast is an audience larger than what we'll be speaking in front of on stage, larger than some of these other podcasts I've been on. I still have a lot of insecurities about being in the public eye, and we'll go through some of those on this episode.
Yeah, and we don't need to list everything out. I mean, to be honest, in this episode, what you're going to get is real us, and you're going to get Lisa on the other side. She is directing that. And, there was no, like, we didn't plan any of this out. It was just off the cuff, and it was great.
Yep.
Because it helped us identify some of these blind spots, things that, like, reframed your thinking. She even was reframing specific words, like content, for instance, was one that she helped me reframe. And ironically, it was something I was reframing for myself just last night. So it was perfect timing. So I think there's a lot of, if you approach this episode with an open mind and And think about slowing down your thinking, not all the time, but like find some introspective time and have this podcast be one of those times where let in what she's saying and hear from our examples of how, how she's analyzing us a little bit when we're working through things, but how this shows up in your own life. Because I guarantee you can relate with a lot of what we're saying, maybe not specifically like showing up on a podcast or going on a stage, but how you show up just in front of people. It could be your group of friends.
Well, I think back to like when I was just first starting my own online career, I was very insecure about just recording videos, just recording audio like we're doing right now. So for when I talk about getting on stage or going on really, really large podcasts, that's what it is for me in this moment. But for you listening to this, it may be, getting comfortable recording audio that other people are going to listen to, getting comfortable recording videos, or turning the camera around and being on camera. It is for you, whatever it is for you right now. We talk about what these things are for us right now, the things that are sort of in our own heads that we're trying to work through.
That's it. Yeah. So I don't know if we should say anything more other than Lisa is absolutely amazing. Get those commandments. It's linked up in the show notes if you're driving. That's all good. We are taking notes, of course. So you'll get a lot of notes on more of the intricacies. You're not going to get all of the 12 commandments on here. So that's why you should get both. So get Lisa's handout, but also get our notes, because you're going to get a lot more specifics in ways that this reframing kind of works.
Yeah. And so you can grab those notes by texting the word comp to 38470.
38470 is the phone number, and text that word comp with a high-pitched Matt voice.
Yes, you have to text it with a high-pitched voice or it doesn't work.
You actually have to, like all of our phones have a voice texting feature now. It has to be the high tone. They're picking up on tonality.
Now people are going to throw like extra O's in there, and they're going to go comp, and then they're going to wonder why their notes never come to them. You actually have to type COMP.
All right, just type that.
Otherwise, the notes probably won't make it to you. So type comp, text it to 38470, or if you're old school, go to hustleandflowchart.com/comp, and you can opt in for the notes there too.
Get the notes. You're going to love them. Matt goes to very high voices for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Puberty.
Wow. How old are you? You're
I've
like
got 2
56?
kids.
What are you, 56, 65? I always forget your age.
I lose track too.
Okay.
Let's go talk to Lisa before this just really goes off the rails.
Hey, it's Joe. I'm going to be really quick. I just want to give a shout out to our podcast sponsor for this episode. It is LinkedIn. Da-ding! So I've talked about it before. We're getting obsessed with LinkedIn just because we're seeing that there is so much opportunity, a lot of opportunity to connect with different professionals that are looking for the stuff you got going on. It's different than the other platforms. You're not a distraction on LinkedIn. They're actually there to digest business-like stuff, which a lot of you listening most likely have. I'm just assuming listening to a business show. So there's actually 62 million decision makers on LinkedIn looking to connect. So it's actually the perfect place to reach the right professionals at the right time. So you could do all the different things that LinkedIn offers for you, but LinkedIn ads are something that can really ramp up what you're doing really well. They have some precise targeting. You can actually really get narrowed down to the actual people that you want to speak with. And you could do things to drive traffic and engagement to landing pages, content, registering for events, whatever you want to do. You can actually do it right there on LinkedIn. So right now is a perfect time to try it out yourself. LinkedIn's actually offering a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit to launch your first campaign. So simply visit linkedin.com/flowchart. That's linkedin.com/flowchart, and terms and conditions apply. All right, go get signed up. And now let's go head over to the episode.
Lisa, how you doing?
I am so good.
Yeah? Why is that?
Oh, like you guys are all, well, I have you on video, so I get to see these good looking guys with the smiles and the new dad who is barely awake, but I'm so glad you're here.
Barely awake.
Sipping on like a 40-ouncer of coffee.
Thank God for coffee.
I know, right? Oh my God. So we met at New Media Summit, good old Steve Olsher's event. We always like to give him a shout out because we've brought so many awesome people from that event, but just like that event, I think just just like blows up the connection. So just like quick little shout out to New Media Summit and Steve.
Yeah.
Good job out there, y'all. But you were on stage there. I don't know if you were an attendee or a speaker
I
or
think you were
both.
a speaker, right?
Definitely
I'm a speaker. Yeah.
And that's where we saw you and we're like, oh, you speak our language.
Yeah, which is swearing.
Oh, just because I say the F word?
Pretty much. How'd you know?
That is speaking our language. We
But
swear
it
a lot.
is such an indication of like coolness, I think.
Right.
So, no.
I definitely think we have listeners that would disagree with that statement, but we don't give a shit. So
We don't give a shit. No. It's funny how many podcasts I go on and we spend part of talking about like how loaded that word is and how great it is. And like it gets off on a whole tangent about language and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's cool that you're leading with that. I mean, obviously that's not everything you do, but it's all about getting real. So, I mean, you might as well be you. And that's, for a while in our podcast, we held back a lot and we're like, this doesn't feel right. You know, the flow's not there. And then exactly what you're saying and what you said on stage, I thought was really cool because you were speaking to an audience of people that were trying to go on podcasts. So, and a lot of things, people get really stiff when the red light comes on or the camera comes on. So I think that what you're bringing to the table there is really powerful.
It's 20 years of holding space for people with these missions. They want to get out there and seeing how they're not and what is getting in the way. And so often it was just them not really confronting like how they're getting in their way, like the personal part, because I do teach marketing and sales and leverage and all the things you all teach, right? Mm-hmm. We all teach, but we also all know that that when somebody's in their way, when they have a story that's holding them back or a past thing, that the mistake that they're regretting or whatever it is, we can teach them all the systems and the blueprints that we want, and they won't move off of that. So I just decided in this back half, the next 20 years of my career, I'm just going to hold space for people to get real, and just get real wasn't strong enough. It wasn't urgent enough. And it wasn't Jersey enough, as my husband would say. So I had to add the F.
Yeah. So get fucking real with y'all. Yeah. And that's it. And you're right. And I think it was like Tony Robbins or something. He says like he'll use an expletive in certain areas just to accentuate a feeling or entice an emotion in someone. And I feel
it's very activating. It really is very activating, a word.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think we've gotten it as much on this podcast, but one of the previous podcasts I had with a different co-host at one time, we used to cuss a lot. We cuss on this show, but it's more for emphasis. It's like, it's not like the Joe Rogan show where we use fucking as an adjective for everything. Right. But, on that old show, we used to get reviews that would say, I love the content you talk about, but you swear way too much. I'm out. Right. And so people are just like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're going, well, you swear, therefore the information you're giving isn't valid. Like, to me, the logic doesn't make sense of not tuning into something because somebody says specific words that maybe you don't feel comfortable saying. You're going to throw out all of the other valuable things that come along with that. To me, that logic just falls apart real quick.
I agree. And I ultimately decided, Matt, that those people weren't my people. Mm-hmm. And it was okay if they didn't want to listen to me.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I want to hear about what got you to getting real with yourself. You said this is your back half of your career. I know you did a lot in the front half. And who knows if it's, like I think you'll be doing this for way longer than just 20 years. It feels
it's true. It seemed like a cute thing to say, but yeah, right? It doesn't totally work. Yeah.
But what got you to doing this? Because I know you did the whole corporate thing. You did a lot of big business type stuff prior to this.
Yeah, I did. And when I was only 28, I got laid off 3 times in a 2-year period.
Ooh, that's fun.
And it was just enough of a kick in the ass to really have me just not go on autopilot just to get another job. And I think we need that sometimes, something that just it freezes us in a moment so we can drop in and think and assess. And, I always had this, I think I had an implant when I was younger from when my mom survived cancer of life is too short. And that implant has served me so well. And right about that time, it started speaking to me. And it was I had all these health issues. I had migraines and anxiety and all this stuff going on. And I was like, there's something off. Our body speaks to us and there's something off here. I don't think I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And so I left corporate America after being in, Fortune 500 companies and marketing and training and sales positions. And, I was always the youngest one in the room. I actually started my corporate career when I was still an undergrad with AT&T.
Wow.
And so I was always a little bit ahead of the game. And I was a little bit ahead of the game in terms of like ditching corporate. Most people ditch corporate, I don't know, like in their 40s or something like that. But I was a little ahead of the game. And that life is too short thing also, I think, truncated my timeline. And I decided I needed to be able to be my own boss and take care of myself in a way that worked for me and choose who I worked with and what I did. And so that's when I embarked on this thing 20 years ago. And at first I just sort of did what I knew, which was marketing and training and training market. And then it turned into training marketing and I launched consciousmarketing.com. And, before The Secret was out, it was like,
wow.
I just had this notion of like people that I would meet would be awesome. And then I'd look at their marketing and it would suck. And I'd be like, there's a disconnect here. How do I get awesome people to come through awesomely in their marketing? And so that was my first conscious marketing workshop back in 1999. And it just sort of set me on this trajectory of knowing that if we're marketing or selling ourselves, it's a whole different ballgame. And of course, I had to realize that for myself. And then I set out on really creating a special space for people that's what they're doing. They're marketing or selling themselves. And like, it's just, y'all know what I mean. It's like you get rejected and you feel like, you've been stabbed in the heart.
Yeah,
it's not like selling copiers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would see how they would get tripped up. And so that's how I got started.
Yeah. I love that you said the whole disconnect thing. I was thinking about, because we're going to start doing a lot more YouTube type things. And, prior to us starting, or maybe it was actually after we recorded, I don't know. I always forget where we started the conversation. It took us a while to find our voice. Actually, it was on recording. So I've been thinking about, I'm like, man, to inject our personality more and more into things, like, because we're goofy guys, we like to just have fun. So it's like, why not have that come out in our marketing or training videos or all this stuff? I mean, it brings that personality, so there's not that disconnect. Because even us, like, even though we know this, there's still definitely a disconnect there. Yeah. And I think that's really powerful that you're showing people that.
And the truth is that with all of the marketing whiz bangy things that we all go to conferences to learn and all the automation and all the new tech, the best way to stand out is to be ourselves.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what the podcast, at least for, it's just like a case study to relate what you're saying is, since we've done this, every time we hop on a phone call with someone or meet one of our listeners at a conference, they're just like, oh my God, you're the same person. Yeah. When I hear you there, like, it's like we already know each other, and there's no, like, you already knew the backstory of me having a kid and Matt doing his thing and
Matt doing his thing.
Yeah.
Matt being Matt.
Matt being Matt. But it's really cool. If you can shine your personality and what you're putting out to the world, it just makes everything easier.
Yeah.
It does. And it's so much easier said than done.
Sure.
And that's like one of the things with the GFR Commandments that you so proudly held up, that you've opted in for. And, that I want everyone to grab if any of this resonates with them. The GFR Commandments are the roadmap for getting real. And this isn't light, airy, fairy shit. This is like, okay, if you're up for it and you believe that your work is part of your personal evolution and that like doing your work depends on you getting real and getting out of your own way, I feel like, that's what this conversation can be about. That's what my show, the Get Fucking Real show, is about. It's really acknowledging that there is struggle and we are at war with ourselves sometimes, and we aren't telling the truth sometimes to ourselves. And all of that, when confronted, that's when we can, quote unquote, get real and be ourselves in our marketing, which again is something that people they say authentic. It's like, what the fuck does authentic mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to figure that out. Who am I really? And it's so interesting. We're talking about parenting before we got started. Like my 14-year-old, I could see on a day-to-day basis where I could shut her light down and I could have her forget who she is and what she likes and what she doesn't like and what her personality is and all that so easily. And this is what we do in business. And God, this is my soapbox, which everybody should have one. That's what I actually teach it because I think people water it down, but this is my soapbox. we're on it.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, I know, I could speak for myself, and I know Joe's probably very similar in some respects, but we try our hardest to kind of be the same person on the podcast, on stage, when we go on other people's podcasts, when you meet us at networking events. We try, we're trying to just be consistent and let the normal just us flow out. But it's not always easy, right? Like just yesterday, I was actually being interviewed on another podcast, which is a very, very large podcast. And going on it, I knew, okay, this show is going to be heard by like 1 million people. And I was kind of freaking out knowing that this show was going out to a large audience. And I don't think the person that came out on that show is necessarily the same person that comes out on this show. And I'm not quite sure how to like bridge that. I mean, it's close. I think over the years I've done a lot of work, and it's gotten closer and closer and closer to like you're getting the same person no matter what. But there is still a little bit of a gap from me, the me that you see on stage, the me that's on this podcast, the me that goes on other large podcasts, or if I go on a small podcast, it's a different person than if I'm going on a very large podcast. So I'm trying to figure out like, what are some ways to kind of help bridge that gap and help you kind of be that consistent personality throughout.
What do you think? Can you articulate what you think the difference was in the Matt that was on the show yesterday and the Matt that's sitting here now?
I would say yesterday there was, going into it, there was a little bit more anxiety, just kind of knowing that this was going out to a very, very large audience, which is kind of funny because our show goes out to a pretty large audience and I don't really think twice about it. But when I'm going out to somebody else's audience, there's a little bit of anxiety that sort of leads up to that for me. So I don't know. It's interesting.
What did you feel that the audience might think about you that you weren't quite sure you wanted them to think?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, I do definitely know I struggle with imposter syndrome, like probably almost all entrepreneurs.
Okay, so you thought they might find you out. You thought they might find you out.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but a lot of times I don't feel like what I'm talking about has as much value as other people feel that what I'm talking about has value. So a lot of times I'll go into these conversations going in my mind, oh, this is just basic shit. Like they already know all this stuff, right? But while I'm on the show, they're acting, very impressed by what I'm talking about. But there's some uncertainty in my head around, is this really that valuable to this audience I'm talking to?
That's awesome that you can articulate that and connect with that. And you're going to love this because I had a similar thing coming on this show.
Oh, wow. Tell.
It's going to make you laugh, right? Because you're like, it's just me, Matt and Joe. Like, who cares, right? And now I feel fine. But I had created a story in my mind, right? This is what we do that, like, I've been on, 50 podcasts in just the last 6 months. And it's like, well, this one, I don't know. It's Matt and Joe. And they just had, XYZ person on. And, I was looking at your lineup and I'm like, it's been mostly men. And I'm like a chick that, whatever. It's like, I created the story that for some reason, this one was different. For some reason, my usual Lisa Cherney-ness wouldn't be enough or whatever. And that's what you did. It's like you created a story that like, this show is different with this particular and this audience. And, and I love that we're talking about this because like, when I look at the GFR Commandments, when like commandment number 11 says, embrace you're not the same person you were when you made those mistakes and they will not repeat, right? Mm-hmm. And the confession question, so each of the GFR commandments, it doesn't just have a commandment because I'm a trainer and a coach, like I have to get inside your head a little bit. It says, what past mistakes are causing me self-doubt now? It's like, I remember when I was on that stage, like 20 years ago and I didn't know the answer to that question, or like shit just gets in our head and we let it sort of fester. Yeah. And so, if we had more time and we could totally do this offline, it'd just be fun to be like, okay, well, where does that stuff come from? Yeah. And I'm not talking about psychotherapy. Like it doesn't need to be that deep, y'all. It's just like, it's just in your life of your business. Where did you create a story that, like what my usual rap is fine here, but it's not for those people. I call them pedestal people, people that I put on a pedestal in some reason. I create a story that they're separate from me or better than me or whatever. And, so yeah, it's
You know, it's really.
I hope everyone taking something from this is like going, yeah, I've done that.
Oh yeah, and just to close the loop on what Matt's story is, it's funny because I woke up this morning to the host of that show messaging both of us. I don't know if even Matt saw this yet, and his message was, "Holy shit, your stuff is fucking dope." And he's like, "I want to work with you guys." I'm like, yeah. So you did all right, Matt.
Well, I mean, one of the things about this show is like, I'm pretty much always real on this show. Like, I talk about my vulnerabilities and anxieties and the stuff that I freak out about pretty constantly. And I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason people tune in, is because people go, I feel that shit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big one for me. You know, going on, shows that I feel like I put that show on a pedestal, or speaking on stage. I mean, we're speaking at TNC coming up at the end of March here, and like, we're 6 weeks out from it, and I'm already starting to get like anxiety about like, oh shit, we're going to be on that stage. And the funny thing is, we're going on more stages before that, but I'm not anxious about those stages. I'm anxious about the TNC stage, which is 3 stages later.
That's a good point.
I totally get it. Absolutely, totally get it. And when we are at a certain season in our mission-based business, our own personal evolution, like the game it gets higher and higher, right? It's the peeling of the onion, as they say. And so core shit that didn't come up, 5 years ago, now you're pushing the envelope in your business and the stages and the people. And so now new insecurities, yay, are coming up. And that's the journey. And when I was preparing for the show, and you guys had asked in the prep questions, what are the mistakes that I made along the way? For me, it is often not being up for the game that is more serious about about my own process and confronting myself. Actually, the better results I'll get in my business.
Yes.
And anytime I forget about that, that's when I let go of a 7-figure business in 2014, because I feel like there was a bit of unconsciousness that was happening. And I was getting so wrapped up in getting to that 7 figures and getting that t-shirt, which by the way is all I have from that now is a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so, we need to stay noticing. So I love that you have TNC, and I would invite you to just be like, all right, what's this shit about, Matt? What's the story I'm telling myself? Why do I feel like this is where, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
what
interesting.
it's true, because you can use the 12 commandments that you have here, the GFR Commandments, and essentially it seems like you can identify a singular thing that you're working through that you might mentally struggle with, and then just start working down the commandments and be like, all right. Or maybe it's a journaling practice.
It is a journaling practice. It is about reading those confession questions and seeing which one hits you between the eyes or in the gut, and just write. Or if you're better at talking, talk to someone. We have a GFR squad, which is our low end, easy entry membership. And we take a commandment a month, and we just actually it's happening today. We're getting on a call and we're talking about commandment number 8, and we're going to talk about where do I need to pause or stop, but haven't because of fear. It's like so juicy. And we just get on and we talk about it, and we let our hair down. Those of us that have hair, and, and my husband's bald too. He's so sexy. And we just, don't worry about what people are thinking. We just use that opportunity to get real with ourselves. And it's such a sacred space, and so rare now to really have that place where we feel like we can let our hair down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go through the 12 commandments in just a minute. Is that what you were about to say?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say
if you're still on topic, go ahead. I was going to change topics.
Oh, no. Well, I want to go. We're not going to go through them all because there's a lot here. Of course, people can get them.
We can list off the 12, but maybe pick 1 or 2 to dig into. I was thinking
we could do that. Yeah, and shoot, I kind of lost my train of thought now.
I screwed you up.
Go with what you're going to do. I was going to say something about journaling a little bit more, because I feel like there's a lot that you could pull out. That's what I was going to say is, are there some ways that people can use, or good mechanisms? Because this is a great mechanism. I'm holding up the 12 commandments here. Journaling, we talked about that. You said talking to people, you have your squad, almost like therapy. You can find like a good friend of yours to bounce ideas off of, your spouse. How have you found people to work through things initially maybe when it's in the hardest of times, like when you had your 7-figure business or when someone's doing some shit in their business that they should not be doing, but they're like hitting a wall. Where have you found the best mechanisms or ways out of that to get them on a better path?
I have become a confession geek. I am fascinated by, and this is like, I'm a Jewish girl, so I don't know nothing from like confession, like, like the traditional sense.
Yeah.
It just the idea of when we get real with ourselves. And like I had a situation recently with a relationship that I was in, and I had the notion that I wanted to sort of like de-escalate it a bit, and that I didn't want to be investing so much time in this relationship. And I had the thought, it floated in, and it barely paused because immediately I thought, oh, I don't know how I would do that. Like, I can't do that, and it just like whisked in and whisked right out. Right.
Yeah.
And we have this happen all the time, all day long. Like, oh, that garage is, oh, my husband, I just don't know if I could, oh, my business partner, what was I even thinking? Like we have these thoughts and they don't even land. It's like I just picture like clouds, they just sort of like fly by. Right. So one of the things that I have found fascinating is that when we start talking about confessions and, on my Get Fucking Real show, all the guests are confessing things that now that they used to be embarrassed about, right? And that probably were confessions that came through their head and went out and then they didn't, land on it. But now they have lived through the confession and then the unwinding of the thing to then birth their business. And and these stories are, just so fascinating. And so that would be like step one, Matt
Confession.
And Joe, would be like, just like if you could be more aware of the things that you're thinking that indicate that something's not right, something needs to change. And don't worry, you don't need to change it. Like I think sometimes we don't even want to hear our own thought because it's so stressful, the idea of even trying to do anything about it. But if we just actually just got real, just confessed and didn't worry about doing anything about it, that would be like before step one. That's like step 0.
I like it. I like it a lot. And perfect. All right. So confession's great. And the way I'm choosing to do that is like I do journaling, free form. I've been doing that every single day for a while now. And yes, it's like there's a lot of BS that you work through, or at least I've worked through. And now I feel like there's like starting to come out more of the clarity side of things. And then that's where these bigger ahas, it's almost like you had to like work through the muck of confessions and the bullshit you've been swimming in for so long.
Yes. Yes. And I have started to say confessions bring clarity. So you just made my point. And bravo for journaling, Joe. I just think that's freaking awesome. It's not, writing, I'm too lazy, I think. I don't know. But talking, I'm a talker. I love Boxer. Cool. I talk through things. And so whatever it is though, just however we can externalize it is magical.
It's interesting because with this show, the sort of feedback we get and the download numbers sort of show that the stuff that people want to see is the tactical stuff, right? They want to see the Twitter hack. They want to know how to do some Facebook ad trick or something, right? Those are the ones that seem to get the most downloads and tend to be the most...
Well, that's why I got insecure, because I don't want to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we actually do love talking about that stuff too, but at the end of the day, I think the stuff that's had the biggest impact on our businesses and our lives has been more working on the stuff up here, the mental game, the mindset game. That's the stuff that's had the biggest impact, but people don't necessarily want to hear that. That's what's so interesting about the show is we kind of have to balance talking about both of them because the tactics are cool and they're fun to talk about. And we actually do love talking about those, but the stuff that's actually going to get people real impact in their life and their business is getting the mental side really dialed in. And that's where I think things like journaling really help.
I have a solution for that. We need to make very clickbaity titles for episodes like this because people need to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
And I'm a marketing person, so I I have created a way, right, with my marketing brain
You have.
to make this sexy and provocative. And hopefully it means that people that are supposed to be doing their mission and are the ones that are tapped to help this planet fucking get out there and do it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's another confessional thing of mine. I know for me, one of the things that I tend to do is I tend to be a little bit of a self-sabotager when I feel like our brand is getting too big. I mean, it's not super consciously, but there's this thing that happens where when I feel like our more and more people know who we are and our audience gets bigger and bigger, it starts to freak me out a little bit. I start going, I don't know if I like this attention. The attention that's coming our way kind of freaks me out a little bit. And I don't necessarily go and do things and like back off on what we're doing, but I think subconsciously it freaks me out a little bit, and who knows what that subconscious thing is doing to my conscious actions, right? The fact that I feel uncomfortable with a lot of attention pointing our way freaks me out, and I'm always a little bit worried that maybe part of the reason our business hasn't gotten even bigger than it is maybe subconsciously there's like some self-sabotaging going on. But that's just me doing my own psychoanalysis on myself after, journaling and doing drugs and everything I've done to figure out how my brain works.
Yeah, and I think it's just awesome to inquire, honestly. Like, we don't even need to find out the answer, but the fact that you stop long enough to go, I am noticing that the more attention I am getting, the more uncomfortable I am. Isn't this interesting? Like I say that when I speak live, I'm always like, put your finger next to your forehead and go, isn't this interesting? It's like just acknowledging that that's there is so powerful.
Well, Lisa, would you say that, because this goes back to something you said earlier, I think it was with your 7-figure business, is that an indication that like this is a challenge that you're up for, that you can get through, but there might be some reframing to do, like with your commandments, for instance? Like, how would you approach something like that? Because everyone sabotages something in our lives.
Yeah. How do you fix Matt?
No, it's not a Matt therapy session, but it's a good case study.
No, I'm just joking.
I would want to know more about what it sounds like in your head. So when you're like, oh, we're getting a lot of attention, like what is the downside, or what is, I'll say fear, and you might not connect with that word, but like, what does the resistance sound like to all that attention? Like, like, what is it? Can you put more words around it? What's going on in that head?
It's interesting. I'm not really sure, actually.
Well, I think traffic and conversion is bringing it up for you.
Yeah.
So I would say, what is the worst fear you have about like, how would you fuck that up? Like what is coming up for you?
Yeah. I don't think I'm worried about screwing it up as much as I'm worried. I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of like all eyes on me kind of thing, which is probably part of the reason why every business I've ever had, I've had a business partner, is because like, cool, I have somebody else to divert the attention to.
I'll take it.
That way you're not like holding the whole bag. Like it's not all focused on like,
right.
what you say or do.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it was just me, it would all be me. But because I have a partner, I could kind of dilute that attention a little bit between two people.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting twist. So GFR commandment number 4 is trust that your struggle serves your mission. And what I freaking love about this one is that it basically says, hey, whatever you got going on, and if you're sharing it, it is what your listeners need to hear. It's you are basically embodying your very mission. And I like that, because it kind of makes all of my struggle and the stuff that comes up like have a purpose. Yeah. And then at the same time, it's sort of like incognito, because it also will take some of the energy out of it. It won't feel as, because you're going to get on that. What would be awesome is you get on that stage, Joe, and you're like, I was a little nervous about this, and if the more authentic you are, people are going to fucking love you. And that's the irony of it all. And then it takes the power out.
Well, I think that's sort of the irony of this show that we're on right now, is that I open up and I'm sort of vulnerable with my insecurities on the show quite often. And I do that because I know there's other people listening that probably have the same or very similar insecurities. But by doing so, I'm further feeding the machine that's bringing more attention to me. So it is this sort of like catch-22 of like the more sort of vulnerabilities and insecurities I share on the show, the more people relate to me, the more attention comes our way, the bigger we grow, and the more I get insecure about
You're growing, bro. It's okay.
Well, and the cool thing is that the attention that you're getting, at least the attention you're getting, is people liking you for you.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the thing that, right? Like that's the magic of it all, is it? And I have a theory that the more that you lean into being yourself on stage or being in yourself on the podcast that you think, oh, this one, or whatever pedestal people we create, the more we can actually lean into being ourselves, like I am here, right? Then I don't know. I feel like it does dissipate that, like the all eyes on us, because it's at least they're not eyes on some fake person or some persona, or they're eyes on me and they like me for me. So I don't know. I have a feeling it might change the tone of that discomfort that you have. Is it at least they're liking you for you and they're not falling in,
Well, right there is something powerful. That's actually like, it's a journaling thing I did like a couple weeks ago, is I had a reframe as everyone listening to our podcast here, they're our buddies, they're our friends. Yeah. Like, these are people who stick around. I mean, maybe it's their first time in and they're still feeling us out, but
except
whatever.
for Steve. Screw that guy.
Steve sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Steve,
we always like to just call out random names and like, and then somebody named Steve is listening going,
but Steve, no,
talking to me?
No, but not you, Steve, the other Steve.
Yeah.
So,
different Steve.
But the whole reframe is we have cultivated this group of friends around us that choose to hit the play button consistently. And if it's first time, that's okay. We're hoping it's the next time, but if not, that's okay too. We might not resonate with you. And I think the same thing goes for anything we do, email lists, Facebook groups, speaking on stages. Like, sure, that's a big audience. They're not maybe all into us, but the people that approach us afterwards are the ones that follow up with us. Those are our buddies. Those are like our best friends. And that's cool. We don't need to have everybody else on the planet love us or follow us. They might be looking at you, but who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the I think that's the magic that is possible when we do be ourselves, or I like to say we're unapologetically ourselves, right? That we get to a real peaceful place, that we're not trying to attract every single person. We are only trying to attract the right people that we're meant to serve. And to me, that also puts my mind at ease, because I got a lot of pushback when I was launching the show, and I went to my mastermind and with all of the, people that are our buds,
What were they saying?
I showed up with my 12 commandments and my GFR show, and they were just like, oh, Lisa Cherney. I don't know. I like to say my full name, Lisa Cherney. I don't know if you should use the F word. It looks like you're trying to get attention, and, you're going to turn off some people that really need you. And it really caused me to pause and just the result was that I got much more clear and confident about, this is me. And anybody that knows me knows that this is very me and it's fun for me. It feels really fun for me. And I'm just going to go for it. And whoever is attracted is attracted. And that's totally okay. And it was such a great birthing milestone that I needed to walk through, kind of like a gauntlet. Okay, here, here's some pushback to start before you even get the thing out there. And it's just made me even more peaceful about, I'm just going to do me. I just, what? I just can't anymore. Yeah. And I'm not waiting till I'm 60. I'm just now. I'm not even 50 yet. And I just can't be bothered with what people think. Most of the time, I don't let that bother me. But it's.
Well, what, like, now that you're more in your flow now, it sounds like the show's out there and all that. Like, are there some things that you've come across that still bring up resistance, or like, do you have ways to, get around those types of things?
Yes, I have an allergic reaction to the word launch. And I, and again, my 7-figure business was largely based on launching, and I had events and butts and seats and the whole thing. And I recently decided that I do work with people at a higher level. I call it unmentoring, and we could talk about that in a little bit here. But I have this theory now that if you're in a season where you're done with mentoring, but you just keep leaning on it, it actually holds you back, and you need to go to a place of unmentoring, which doesn't mean mentoring yourself. It just means figuring out what really works for you, how to listen to your own self and all that. And I'm really good at helping people with that.
Cool.
So I had to do some unmentoring with myself because I wanted to attract I do pods of people. I want a new pod. I want to attract those folks. And I don't want to launch. Mm-hmm. And I tried, y'all. I was like, I'm going to do a Facebook challenge. And then I went to my friend Alina, who's the expert at that. And she's sharing with me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I had to really get real with myself and say, you know what, I just don't even have the ability anymore to fake it. Like, I can't just gut it through. It just felt heavy and yucky. And so that's, like for me now, I just can't do that. So I let that go and I just got into what I was excited to talk about and what I was passionate about, and forget about the results and forget about the strategy, because that shit comes naturally to me now. I don't need to lead with that. I could just lead with, what do I want to say? And then this whole unmentoring like body of work came through me, and now I'm just excited to share it. So I'll be sharing it, here over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm just sharing it. I'm going to do Facebook Live. I'm going to do a Zoom. I have it on my show, and I'm just sharing it. And I'm sure I'm going to get, an awesome group of clients from it. But, I didn't have to resort to anything that just doesn't resonate with me anymore.
I like that a lot, because that's kind of our same approach, is give all your best stuff away, and it's going to attract the best people to you. They're going to want to take an action with you. So I love that spin on launching. And I think it's healthier too. It's launches are fucking stressful for one. And they're always like last minute. I've been a part of numerous,
nobody sleeps during them.
Can't count how many launches we've been through. That's probably why I'm great at 34. So good on you, because I think leading with content, like we were talking about fans and all that, you're going to have rabid fans from all of that at the end of the show.
Yeah. And even saying content kind of feels like a strategy. So I would say, just like lead with, like, what do you want to say?
Conversations.
Oh, and I was talking about soapbox earlier, and one of the commandments is don't worry about being normal, proper, or polite. And the confession question is, where am I not speaking my truth? And I love this one because it will help you get to what your soapbox is. And that's where the juice is. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, what is your soapbox? What is it like? If you didn't worry about what anybody was going to say about it, you weren't worried about offending anyone, you weren't worried about breaking any laws or whatever, because all of our people that are regulated, they put little boxes around themselves and they don't say the things that they want to say. It's like, if you weren't worried about any of that, what would you want to say? And people just get all excited, and and their hands start moving if they're, their culture does that, and they and it's like, and then they put a lid on it by thinking, okay, but what strategy am I going to use? Like, you know what? Just share your shit, people. Just share it, and you are in the end. Because you've been doing this for so long, naturally the strategy will emerge.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because so most of our business is affiliate marketing, and then we have a newsletter that people who listen to the show subscribe to as well. But it's kind of funny because we don't sell very much stuff, but we will get people come to us going, I bought that affiliate product off you. I don't really need it, but I wanted to support you guys in some way. So I bought through your link. I probably won't ever use that tool, but that's my way of saying thank you for what you put out on the show. Like, we've literally gotten messages from people that have bought tools through our affiliate links because they didn't know a better way to repay us for the content that we've given them. And stuff like that just kind of falls into place when you're out there freely giving.
It's so true.
And I love, Lisa, what you said with just terminology. It's these certain words can completely change how you show up in the world. And like you said, content, 100%. Like, that's a perfect reframe. And that's actually something I'm personally working through with, like, creating content is, why am I so fucking rigid, or why do I have to plan everything out? Like, I'm great in conversation. Like, there's persuasiveness there. There's I know what I'm good at. So just like identify how I'm showing up here, but like translate that to writing or to a Facebook Live or on stage, because just because they're different modalities or places that you're showing up doesn't mean you have to be different.
Yeah.
It's so true. And that, this unmentoring distinction, one of the things I realize, it's you're past that. I need the system, the blueprint, the boot camp, just tell me what to do. And now you're like, okay, I need to pick which things really work for me. Like I like that piece of it, or that part's really brilliant. And it's just, now it's about being discerning and going with what feels good. And what a concept. Something I'm trying to make sure my kid knows how to do is what feels good, because we don't get a lot of opportunity or permission even to do that. And so when we're in business, it's very easy to usurp our own autonomy for someone else that we perceive knows, which is great in the beginning. I'm not saying mentoring is not awesome, because it was a huge thing that, at the 8-year mark of my business that popped me up for sure. But then there comes a time where it became more detrimental, because I was not trusting myself and questioning myself. And, and that's what led to creating a business that just was like, it was like, before I knew it, I was like looking around and it just didn't feel good. So, just being mindful, y'all, about what feels good, and get real about it, and you'll be good.
It's true. It's like, why do stuff that makes you feel bad? If it doesn't feel like if it feels like friction, like that's it, you're just hitting a wall on whatever it is, even if it seems like something you should be able to do, there's probably a little something there, that like a snag that you got to work through.
Absolutely. And I'm the guest on my show. Every guest shares their like struggle with a purpose story that led to their business. And so many of them look at the GFR Commandments and like, God, I wish I had this. Like, I wish I knew that my struggle had a purpose, because maybe I wouldn't have tried to kill myself, or maybe I wouldn't have gotten to jail, or maybe I wouldn't have created the debt that I had. And, these are all things that happen to so many people. And I love what you're saying.
Cool. I like what you're saying as well. I love it.
Thank you. This is fun.
It is fun. I feel like we've just gone all over the place, but I like how you like specifically, like you'll like pull out a commandment and you're like, oh, this.
Yeah.
So
I'm handy that way.
Yeah, definitely on theme. Yeah. So I mean, where do you? So when someone picks up the commandments, like I'm just curious, like how do you work through this, and like how would you approach this on, like a high level without getting super detailed into every single little thing, because there's a lot to it.
Right at the top it says, the more you get fucking real, the more impact and money you will make. It's confession time. Are you ready to GFR? So the first thing is, are you ready? So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that's a fun, cute conversation, but really, if you're not happy in any way, shape, or form with how your business is rolling out or the performance, and you've done all the strategies and made all those investments and it ain't working, this is the shit to look at right now. So I would say, first decide, are you ready to GFR? And then if you are, choose a confession question that hits you in the gut and start writing. So this is not a 12-step program. This is read the confession questions. So each commandment has a confession question, and you'll know it when you read it. You'll be like, oh shit, like you'll just feel that feeling of like, that's the one, Yep. And I'd start there, and I would say, just let it be there. Like, I love how much you're talking about journaling, because it's like you stop and you drop in and you get real and you write. So however you do that, however you create time for yourself, for your thoughts. I'm a big meditator. I take walks, baths, things like that. However you could stop yourself, if you're like, get on the treadmill, whatever it is, just pick the one confession question, because it'll do wonders. Just the one, and really, take some time with it. It is the best way to get started. And then, listen to my show, because every single guest talks about it. And then join my squad if you're really digging it, because, each month we have a theme and we just spend a little time.
Your show sounds fun, by the way. Yeah, I gotta check it out.
I swear, like, I think, like, is this really for other people? Because it's helping me. Like, right? Every single show is like what I need to hear. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I love question number 9. I think that's my favorite. If my mission was guaranteed to make money, what would I do? I think that's the kind of question I journal on sort of all the time, is like, what would I not necessarily rather be doing? So a lot of what I'm doing is what I want to be doing, but there's also a lot of stuff I wish I had more time to do that I'm not doing. Things like pursuing my musical pursuits and things like that. But I like that question a lot.
Yeah. And you can almost like flip it. It's like, oh, guaranteed to make money, or like, if money's not an issue, who the hell cares too?
Yeah. Well, and the one right before it, number 8, is where do I need to pause or stop and have it because of fear? It's like the opposite. Right. Yeah, it's like, what is this shit that I want to stop doing? And again, that's another unplug for the unmentoring season of your businesses. It's not about now gathering opportunities and all the clients. It's like, all right, it's time to let stuff go. What needs to go? Who needs to go?
We just did that in our business too, and we won't go down the rabbit hole. There's a whole episode we released already on this, but yeah, we let a lot of stuff go in our business because we realized we're just doing too freaking much, man. And
I heard that episode, and
yeah.
I was super happy for you guys because I could hear one of you said, like, it's kind of embarrassing how much we change our minds. And it's like, no. Right? It's no, we are entrepreneurs, we're mission driven, and we evolve. So guess what, people? Our business evolves. That's it. It's irrefutable. So just like live with it. I don't care how much money you invested in that brand or how much money you invested in that mentor that told you to do that thing that you don't want to do anymore. It's just no.
I love it.
Hell yeah. Yes, there you go.
Bravo, change all you want. So as long as you're happy,
changing.
that's the most important thing.
I don't know who said it, but we both like say that stuff, and yeah, because that's a blockage, and we all evolve. We learn something new every freaking day. You just taught us so many things, and you gave us a great resource to now, like I'm gonna literally use this as journal prompts, and like
please keep in touch with me. I really would love to hear how. Because I'm still the commandments are fairly new, and so I'm still sort of like learning about them and learning how people are using them and what it, how it's helping them. So
cool.
Yeah, let me know. And all listeners, once you download it at gfr.life/12C, download it. And if, I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up, Facebook, Twitter, all the places, Instagram.
Say that URL again, but slower.
We got it here.
GFR.life, which I love my website, GFR.life/12C as in 12 commandments. That's cool. Where you grab the commandments.
Yeah. And it's the number 12. So 12C.
12C. 12C.
Just wanted to make sure
I'm not
that
sure
everyone...
if that was clever or not, but whatever, that's what it is.
We'll link it up in the show notes in case anybody forgets it or is driving or whatever right now.
Yeah, we got you there.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've really learned from this podcast is that any sort of fears we have, any sort of insecurities we have, anything that we're afraid to pursue, there's people listening that are in the exact same situation, that have the same insecurities, that have the same fears. And the only way that you're actually going to get people's attention and get traction with your business is by being fucking real and talking about these insecurities and these vulnerabilities and these fears. Because if you're not out there putting these things into the world, telling people that these are issues you have, nobody's going to step up to help you with them, right? And so that's been one of my big ahas with this podcast is if I just put any of the shit I'm struggling with out into the world, there's usually people out there that are willing to step up and say, hey, look, I got you. I know what you're going through. Here's some advice that helped me, or here's a tool you can try, or here's a journaling exercise that's worked for me, or whatever. If you're not putting it out into the world and you're just sort of bottling it up from a personal level, you're probably not gonna get the advancement that you need, right? But also from a larger perspective, by putting it out in the world, it sort of enables and empowers other people to stop feeling like their vulnerabilities and their insecurities are taboos, right? And I think that's such a powerful thing to realize, is that all the shit that you're scared of, start talking about it, because that's the only way that you're going to get over it. And that's the only way other people are going to talk about it as well. And that's the only way you're going to raise awareness around these issues. I mean, we've had lots of conversations about how stressful being an entrepreneur is. We've had conversations on this show about suicide. We've had conversations on the show about depression, anxiety, and the stress and how it can kill you through heart attacks and strokes and all that kind of stuff. We've had all of those conversations. And I think, by having those conversations, it's enabling and empowering people to talk more about it and find more solutions and support each other. And so I think what you're doing with your Get Fucking Real thing is so powerful, because you are telling people it's okay. Go out there, talk about this stuff, use your voice, share what you're scared of, because I guarantee what you're scared of, the people you're talking to at some level, on some level, probably are too. And so I think that's why what you're doing is so powerful. And I love the brand. I love the branding. I love that you didn't listen to the people that said, don't put that one word into your brand because that's going to turn people off. Fuck those people. Those are the people I don't want following me.
That's right.
Anyway, there's my soapbox.
I was going to say, I think you found your soapbox.
I was like, oh, yes. Thank you, brother. Couldn't said it better myself.
We'll give you this video later to use in all your marketing. It's true. I don't know what to say. I won't say anything more. That was perfect. We should just I want to just quickly touch on the unmentoring part, because you said, is there a little bit more that you wanted to talk about that? I know that's upcoming, and just give us a scoop on that and what to look out for.
Yeah, I would say that the thing that I most want to say about it right now is that if you know that you are the number one thing standing in your way, not because you don't have the perfect strategy, evergreen, whatever. Sorry, guys, right? If you know, like, you know what, it's me, it is me, then that could be a clear indication that you're in an unmentoring season, that you're actually needing to come at your success from a whole different standpoint. And it's time to start saying no to things and start really knowing what feels good to you. And it's huge. It's like, it's almost on the order of enabling addiction. When we enable somebody that has an addiction, it's like they stay unconscious. And I feel like sometimes getting another mentor just sort of like keeps us from really looking at our shit and seeing why we are insecure or don't have the confidence or not raising our prices or, pushing and striving so much that we're creating health issues. And so that's what I would invite people just to look at is like, all right, am I in a new season in my business where I just want it to feel good? And there's so many different ways to look at why something doesn't feel good. So I'm going to be talking about this. Depending on whether you listen to this, you could probably find videos and stuff on my Facebook. I have unmentoring.com, so I'm sure we're going to put shit there. So go to unmentoring.com, and we're going to have an assessment that you could take to see like what season am I in, the mentor season or the unmentor season. And it's returning you back to you. And if you're craving that, like you're like, shit, like I'm tired of like just taking somebody else's word for everything. It's time for me to really just get clear with what works for me. You're probably in the unmentoring season.
That's so cool. I love it. And that's, all right. Yeah. Well, unmentoring.com. I mean, that I know it's not live yet probably, but that's a hell of a domain name. That's awesome.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
How can, to get the commandments, gfr.life/12c, 12c. But how else can they go reach out? You said Facebook, you're putting a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, and Instagram is Lisa Cherney GFR. And so every single show, we have little clips from the shows and quotes from the shows. And I would just say, if you are needing of inspiration, like you're like, shit, this is hard. What was I thinking? I would say search up my show and just listen to an episode, because the stories are so crazy and gut-wrenching and awesomely terrible that you will actually feel like, well, if they can survive that, my shit's not as bad as their shit. Or maybe it is, but now you can hear somebody else go through it. So, and people are just so vulnerable and so real. And it really just shows that the truth that I've known for a long time is that a mission-based business is usually born through some kind of struggle, right? Like you saw something, you learned something, and you're like, I have to help people or companies now. And so it is often up-leveled and evolved through struggle. And so that's what we are real about on the Get Fucking Real podcast. And, that's what I'm all about. And I love your rant that you went on, because it's just true. If we just all start talking about this stuff, and coming out about all whatever we think we need to be in about, magic's going to happen. Safety is going to be created, and that's where we're evolving to.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be on your show. That sounds fun. Invite me on your show.
All right. Time to get vulnerable. Let's do it.
No, it just sounds fun, even though it's like,
now you put her on the spot. Maybe you're not her ideal guest.
I don't.
Well, you know what? When people say that, that's because they've connected with something that they want to share. So
exactly.
That's what I'm
Okay,
feeling.
gotcha.
I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's got some stories to share for sure.
Yeah. No, Joe. And it is as awesome for the guest as it is for the listeners, and it's just an all around.
Yep.
Cool experience. So I'd love to have you on.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think we might have touched on all 12 commandments, but if we miss some, definitely Lisa's going to hook you up. She's got you. You can get them for free at gfr.life/12c. And
Lisa.
Did you forget something?
Yeah, books. I'm always curious what you reading, or what do you like to tell your friends about that just changed your life through the books, maybe a book, podcast, whatever it might be.
Yes, I love Wayne Dyer's autobiography. It is super unique in the way that he tells his story. It's called I Can See Clearly Now. Okay. And each chapter from where he was 4 years old and his mother put him in foster care because she couldn't take care of him and his two brothers. every chapter he shares about a time in his life or story. And then in the second part of that chapter, he says, I can see clearly now. And he shares why he feels like that experience served him to eventually become the Wayne Dyer that we know. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, it's like what I'm just saying is that our stories and our struggle has a purpose. And he just dissects his whole life. And he shows how it was all on purpose. Every struggle, when he was kicked out of the military and he, had a couple cancer diagnoses, like all of it, he shares in detail why he feels like it actually ultimately serves his mission. So I Could See Clearly Now by Wayne Dyer. It's awesome. It's an easy read, which I'm all about because I'm not a big reader, and really poignant. And will have you accepting that your story and everything you've been through is completely perfectly designed for you.
Perfect.
Love it.
I haven't heard of that book, but Wayne's amazing. What's his movie? Do you remember the name of that? If you don't know it, like
I don't. I could see the cover of the movie cover.
We'll link it up because I think that's super cool too, and that's a powerful one. But I'm gonna read that.
And
book.
He has the story. Like, what's cool is when you read the book, he has the story about what happened, how that movie came to be, and so like all the stuff that you've seen externally, like all his PBS stuff, he shares, intricately how that all came about, and it's an amazing miracle how it all came about. So that's cool. It's kind of you get to kind of reconcile what you see as his story and his success with how he got there.
The inner side of it. Yeah.
So cool.
Right.
Cool.
Thanks for recommending that.
I think we covered a lot of ground here, and I think this will be a very powerful episode for a lot of people.
Lisa, are you pumped? Did you have a fun time?
I am so pumped. Matt and Joe, I love you. I want to come back.
I love you too. Of course.
This is awesome. So glad we got to meet at New Media Summit.
I know, no kidding.
Well, you're just right up the road, so maybe next time we'll find a halfway point and do an in-person show.
That would be super fun.
Halfway point on a military base. So,
yeah, or like Oceanside or Carlsbad.
Yeah, that's true. It would be halfway. It'd probably be right in the middle of the military base.
We'll pick a nicer place.
Oh, thanks.
All right, Lisa. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much for tuning into that episode. I hope you dug it. I know Joe and I dug it. I actually kicked Joe out of the room. He's not here right now because I wanted to tell you about a tool that I really, really dig. We use it in our business. We recommend it all the time. It's called Easy Webinar, and it's a tool that lets you do live webinars, automated webinars, hybrid webinars, and, pretty much any other kind of webinar if there are other kinds of webinars. But anyway, this tool is kind of like your all-in-one, do-it-all tool for anything webinar related. It's Easy Webinar. It's put out by a dude named Casey Zeman. He's been on the podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a killer episode. He's a really smart dude, but his software is amazing. It does everything. It's, the title tells you exactly what it does. It's an easy webinar platform. And we use this in our business to run automated webinars all the time. We don't do a lot of live webinars these days. We like to do the kind of automated webinars where somebody can register and then they can either watch it like 15 minutes later or they can watch it the next day, but it's just kind of always running. And it's a system that helps us make autopilot sales off of our webinars. Super cool tool. If you haven't tried it yet, it's an amazing tool. And Casey is actually hooking you up. He said for listeners of Hustle and Flowchart, I can't believe he's doing this, but he said for listeners of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, he's giving 25% off of the membership to use Easy Webinar. It's already super, super inexpensive for what it does and all the cool features it has, but he's hooking you up with 25% off because you're a listener of Hustle and Flowchart. Go to easywebinar.com/hustle. That's where you can get that 25% off discount. That's easywebinar.com/hustle. It's a awesome tool. You're going to dig it. So just go grab it. Check it out. easywebinar.com/hustle. See ya. No, not see ya. You'll hear me in the next show. I don't know how to close these things. Go get Easy Webinar. Talk to you later. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.